Hello, I'm Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm very excited to be talking about the first episode of series 19 of Taskmaster. For me, I feel like this has been a long time coming. I feel like we've been waiting for this for quite a while and I'm so excited it's here, and I think the first episode was absolutely amazing. I think it was a really strong opener. I think there's a lot of things that made this episode so good, and I think from like general reception from what I've seen other people say, I'm not the only one in thinking that this is a fantastic episode. So as I said, there's a lot of things that go into this, but I'm going to kind of do what I do when I normally review these episodes, is just go by it task by task and talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, how I enjoyed the contestants, whether I agree with Greg, and then at the end just kind of give like a roundup of what I'm enjoying from the series. So let's get into it. As usual, we're starting with the prize task, but I did just want to mention how much I'm enjoying the studio banter already, like the fact that in the opening we're already getting that. So a couple of points like Alex correcting Jason on like the British pronunciations of words, that I think is really funny, and like the different words that we use and saying that he's got to like conform to the like British things, and I just thought that was really funny, and it's a joke that I imagine we're going to hear quite a lot throughout the series, so that's very funny. And also there was that joke about Greg not having any range because he's like was a teacher, he played a teacher on TV and is like acting in a teacher role. Genuinely seemed to like anger Greg a little bit, so I love that. Just sets the scene very, very well, and it's just kind of like we picked up straight away from the last season. It feels very high energy, feels very fun, which I really enjoy. So the prize task was to bring in the best thing that reminds you of school in a good way. This I think was a good prize task in the sense that they've got to think of something creative, but also it's got to be something a bit nostalgic as well. It's got to relate to you, but it's also got to relate, more importantly, to Greg. So starting off with Fatia, and she brought in a golf club, which was very confusing because no one knew where she was going with this, but that makes it even funnier. And the whole story was about how she would get in trouble, so her mum told the teacher to pretend to threaten her with a golf club. And the thing that reminded her of it in a good way, was because she never actually got hit by it. This I don't think was very good. It was funny, the story was funny, but as a prize, the golf club isn't that good, and it's also not a very good prize to win. It's not really relatable for anybody but herself. So yeah, I'm not surprised that this one ended up getting 1 point. We then had Jason bringing in one of the maps that you pull down. I never had this in school, but it's something that I always saw on like American TV shows, so I did think this was really cool. So I did really enjoy this, and I'm not surprised that Greg also enjoyed it too. Then we had Matt, and Matt brought in the TV trolley, and I thought this was an amazing prize. I think in many ways this is like a perfect prize. It fit the category very, very well. It is a thing that reminds you of school in a good way. A TV trolley, that means you have a lesson where you're not going to do any work. It has nostalgia because I think everybody in some sense has had that moment in school. It related to Greg because he was a teacher, and also we got a really good anecdote from somebody in the studio. This time it was Greg who told the story about how he would get drunk at lunch and then go into school and bring out that trolley to like be able to just have a lesson where he didn't have to do anything. I think that is a perfect prize, and I'm kind of annoyed it didn't get 5 points. I understand why Greg gave 5 points to Jason, but I think this one deserved 5 points. I would have swapped those two around, definitely. Next up we had Rosie, and she brought in a school dinner. And this one I am kind of mixed on, because although my school dinners at school were quite good, like they were fine, a lot of people don't remember them as being a good thing. But I guess you could definitely talk it up to being, wow, this is when you didn't have to do lessons, so school dinner was a sign that you didn't have to have lessons. But it didn't look very appealing. She could have at least chosen some foods that were nostalgic to schools, like to people who've been in British schools. Like I'm thinking of like a pudding that was like the cake with like the icing on and sprinkles, or like a sticky toffee pudding or something like that. But it just didn't look very appealing. So I get the idea, but I just don't think it was the best representation of what she was going for. And then we had Stevie, who brought in the scented gel pens. And again, I loved this. This is nostalgic for me because we had these in school. They were very cool to have these. I didn't really have that thing where she would write down the person of like who you liked or who you had a crush on and then would sniff it throughout the whole day. Didn't have that, but I thought the gel pens were quite cool. They're always something you'd be jealous of if someone else had it. And then she also linked into the whole Superman S thing, which is very nostalgic for everybody. So again, I think this is very good. And again, we had that funny moment with her thinking that Greg's older than he is, which is something that we've had quite a few times throughout the series, which I really enjoy. This one for me, I probably would have swapped Stevie's and Rosie's around, just in terms of how good of a prize I think they are, and I'd rather win gel pens than win a old school dinner. But yeah, no major disagreements on Greg's scoring. I think he did a pretty good job. I think overall this was a very good task. I thought that we got a good story, we got a good moment from everybody. We already have got the contestants joking with each other, joking with Greg and Alex. So I think it's a really good environment straight away, which I really enjoy. Now we go on to the first proper task of the series, and this one was in the lab, and I just absolutely loved that Stevie got lost. We've never actually seen somebody get lost before like that. I think that's just really funny, and it definitely feels like this is the first task that they did, because Stevie didn't know where to go. Jason ended up going into the main living room area and was amazed by the theme. So this definitely seems like it's the first task, which I like, that we kind of start off the series with them as well, they're doing their first task and we're watching them do it as the first task. So I really like that, because this is them fresh. They're not at the end of their tether. This is them going into the show for the first time. And the fact that we already get them be quite annoyed at the end of this task just kind of sets us up very well, I think. Oh, and how can I not mention Matt's outfit? Absolutely love it. I think that those shorts are dangerously short, but I always love it when a contestant wears a hilarious costume. I think it's just so funny. But yeah, this task, they had to start off by putting their hands on the hand markers and closing their eyes. This I think is quite fun. It's just you're immediately having to put your trust into Alex as your first task, which is scary but very, very funny. And they ended up having jars of vinegar put on their hands, which I think that would have hurt my hands, to be honest, because they looked quite heavy. So the actual task was to pour all of that vinegar into the fish tank. For every 1 milliliter they spilt, they had, I think, 3 seconds added to their time, and it was fastest wins. This, I think, is quite a simple task in terms of you just need to put that vinegar into something, but it was made more difficult by a few things. The fact that it was placed on the tops of their hands, and then obviously the trickery we have with the fish tank. This, I think, was a really good setup. I think seeing them try to move their hands and get the jars off looked very tricky, and I'm surprised not many people actually spilled quite a lot of the liquid doing that, because I think I would have just frozen and not really known what to do. I think I probably would have done, what Matt and Rosie ended up doing was using their mouth to kind of grab it and lift it up. But yeah, let's go through what all the contestants did. So we had Matt, and this started off strong with Matt. My goodness, I don't think we've seen anybody have such a difficult first task. This is so funny. So I think he did really well to start off with. He had some really good ideas, obviously moving his hands closer to him and then getting the lids down straight away. I think that was really smart. But then from there, just kind of went very, very downhill because he couldn't find the fish tank. And obviously, as we see with everybody else's, the fish tank wasn't a real fish tank. It was a tank driven by a fish, which I think is a very fun Taskmaster thing to do. If you're watching this for the first time, this is your first introduction of the show, I think this is quite a fun task to be introduced with. You see how difficult it is, and you also see how it's made more difficult by Alex messing with them and doing things like this. So I think it's a great task to start off with. I think showing 4 out of 5 of the contestants' attempts all at once for the first task is quite good as well, because it just shows how high energy and how chaotic it is. Just the contrasts between attempts is very funny to watch when you've got Matt running around struggling to find the fish tank, saying, I'll either hate myself or hate you when I find it. It's just very funny then, and we see the contrast of everybody else just kind of Fatty especially just wandering around finding the fish tank, finding it relatively soon. It's just very funny. So yeah, Matt, he took so long to find it. Very, very funny, and I think he's right to hate Alex for that. But I just don't understand why he didn't look under that. I mean, I guess he just thought that's not a fish tank under there. But I think if anything is deliberately hidden under a camouflage thing, I'm going to look and see what that is. So yeah, I don't know why he didn't, but very, very funny that he didn't as well. The person I think I was most impressed by in this one though was Fatia, because her fingers bending up like that was genuinely quite weird. But she must have very, very strong hands, because when she was balancing it up and putting the lid on while holding the jar up by her face and just holding it up like that, I would not have been able to do that. I thought that was very impressive. And as I said, the rest of the task, she just wandered around and found it quite quickly. She did seem to spill quite a lot of it while she was pouring it in, which perhaps disadvantaged her a little bit, but she still did very, very well. Jason did mess himself up quite early on, so he was able to lift the jar like Fatia did just off the table. Again, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have definitely been sliding it towards me. But then tried to like flip it, like to get his hand out of it, which I thought was a terrible idea. I think there's a million different things you could do before doing that. And yeah, he spilt like 75% of that jar, but then ended up actually dropping the jar, luckily with the lid on, but that could have gone very badly, like if it broke. But I just loved how he just seemed amazed and distracted by like the living room and the fact that he was on Taskmaster. So that was very nice to see. But the person who did amazingly well on this task was Stevie. Even though she didn't really seem to have a plan, she didn't put the lids on. She just seemed to get the things run, and it worked for her. She didn't manage to spill anything, which I thought was really impressive considering she's the only one that didn't utilise the lids. So yeah, she did really well and won this task and got 5 points. But I absolutely love how everyone got mad at this task just by seeing what the fish tank was and that it was a tank driven by a fish. It just sets up the season very well if every single contestant is already annoyed on the first task, which I believe is one of the first tasks that they actually filmed as well. Just such a good task. Matt looking around for ages, missing it almost the second time as well. And yeah, Greg was right. Everyone was so angry. And it already seems that they were close to like breaking point already from the first task. Then we had Rosie's attempt, and it was set up that Rosie was going to do like disastrously badly, just the way that they were talking about it. But I thought in the grand scheme of things, I know she did come second to last, but I think this wasn't as disastrous as I was expecting. So she did seem to get the jars very quickly. And I thought since she went straight to like the caravan, the submarine thing, that she'd get it quite quickly. I thought that's what it was setting up. That, oh no, she hasn't done very badly, she's done very well. But her thing was that she decided to make a fish tank out of a jar. And I think this is quite a good workaround because as they ended up settling on, it's like, it was a different type of fish tank, and I think Greg's ruling was quite fair in the fact that if there was an actual fish tank that she had to find and she didn't find it and just made that, that's one thing. But because Alex turned it into a pun and it was a completely different thing, I do think this is fair, because if you put some stones and some water in and put a fish in the jar that she chose, I don't think anybody would question it being a fish tank, because that kind of bowl fish tank things you get, the ones that are like probably not very good for the fish, people use them a lot, and I think it's what you kind of think of as a fish tank. But yeah, it's not like one of those big ones with like water in. It's just a container for containing a fish, which I think that could do the job very well. So yeah, I think that's fair. In terms of scoring, because Jason spilt so much, he ended up coming last. Rosie was in 4th, Matt was in 3rd, which I think is quite impressive. Fatia was in 2nd, and then Stevie won this task. So the next task we had was actually a 2-parter, and this actually surprised me by being a 2-parter. But recently I've kind of come to expect it with certain tasks if they don't seem simple enough, but this one did actually surprise me, which I really liked. So the task was to do something cool, and they had 10 minutes. This seems like a very normal task to have on Taskmaster. They've had things like this before, so we saw them all talk about things that they were going to do. Jason immediately wanting to go onto the roof or go into traffic, which was amazing. We saw them do some things, Stevie throwing the thing behind her. I think this would have been a good task as it was. I think as I said, we've seen similar tasks to this before. The contestants always end up doing something silly, maybe embarrass themselves a little bit. So yeah, I think this would have been a good one, but it was made even better by the second part of this task. So the second part of this task was to do their cool thing backwards, and then when it was played backwards, it would match what they did initially when that was played forward. Very convoluted, but it does make sense. And yeah, I thought this was a really good idea. Doing things backwards, really hard to do, especially if you've got any sort of talking involved, because that's really hard to replicate. And also anything that's got gravity involved, because you obviously can't make things fly. So I think this is really good. I think it sounds like a very plausible task to just have as the first part, because a lot of the ones I just scream at the contestants. It's like, when it's something so simple, like pick a colour or write down 5 things beginning with this letter, you know it's going to be leading to a second part, because that wouldn't be a task in itself. but the first part of this, do something cool, could be a first part of the task. So I think it genuinely can catch people out, and I think it did, and I thought it was very good. So starting off with Stevie, and hers is probably my favourite just because of how funny it was. She decided to throw some paper into the bin, and that I don't think is that cool, but I guess it's just that low effort, low energy thing that is quite cool, or is at least like representative of cool. But the backwards one was hilarious. I think she managed to do the speaking quite well. Like the word she said at the end, I thought sounded right, which I think is really hard to do backwards. But yeah, the guy in the bin was just so funny. I think it was such an inventive way to get around the fact that she had to like defy gravity to do that. And yeah, I thought it was funny, this change in like the bin size to have the person in there. Thought it was really good. This isn't actually not going to be based on the coolness throughout this, it's just on the accuracy. So yeah, I think it was pretty good, and I think she got away with the person in the bin. It just added to it. It didn't look, I mean, it looked not good, but like it was just funny. So yeah, really enjoyed that one. Next we had Matt, and Matt, oh god, he really screwed himself over, and he played a song on a guitar. So he played the guitar while singing a song that he made up, which I think is quite good. Again, we're not really judging it on the coolness, but I don't think it was that cool. It was a good song. But yeah, I think he did such a good job of doing this backwards. It was, I think, a million times better than what I was expecting. I would say probably 50% of the words were right, like you understood what they were without the subtitles. I closed my eyes to listen to it to make sure it wasn't just reading off the subtitles, but I think he did manage to get about 50% of the words correct. So very, very good. Obviously a lot slower than the first version, like the original one. But I think overall he did a very, very good job. Next up was Rosie, and unfortunately I can't say the same thing for her. Hers was breakdancing, which I think in terms of the coolness aspect was quite a good thing to do. I think it's something that most people would consider cool, I guess. So yeah, I loved her breakdancing because it was just so chaotic, it was so messy. She was bumping into anything, which was absolutely hilarious. I thought she was gonna damage something or hurt herself or something. The backwards version just did not match at all, and I think she kind of got herself confused with how things would look backwards. Like when she was doing the worm, she had her hands up in the air, and which I didn't really understand why she was doing that. I mean, I know it would be difficult to do the worm the other way, I guess, if you're used to doing it one way, but your hand would still be on the ground, not up in the air. So I think she just got herself a bit confused. Not the best attempt for this one at all, but I thought it was quite funny. And next up was Fassia, and yeah, hers was just madness. I liked that they played her one, like her backwards one first, just to confuse us, and it was just baffling. I had absolutely no idea what was going on. So weird, just confusingly funny, and I had no idea what she was doing, no idea what it's supposed to be. She didn't manage to make any words, I don't think, sound right. But her original version was her getting a selection of sweets, getting Alex to try one, and having her try and guess what he was chewing, which I don't think would be cool. But the thing I found more baffling than the backwards version was the fact that the third sweet that she chose was a crunchy sweet. It was a biscuit, when surely if you're trying to guess what he's chewing, it would be crunching, and it was very obviously wasn't crunching. So I just thought, very odd choice, and yeah, just all round very confusing, and I think probably does deserve 1 point. And last but certainly not least is Jason, and he decided to pick the lock of the living room, like the conservatory door bit going outside. I loved this. I thought the coolness, if it was rated on coolness, I think he would win this one. I thought it was very, very good. I do find that kind of stuff quite cool, and I absolutely love it when the contestants like bring their own tools to help them, and it's such a fun tool to have. I hope it appears again, like if there is a task, although I guess it would be cheating, and we'll see how we feel about it if it ever comes up. But if there's a task where they have to unlock something, he just brings out his lock-picking set instead of finding the key. That is quite funny, and I kind of hope it does happen, because you can just imagine, like, I don't know, the arguments that people have in the studio of whether or not that should count. But anyway, that hasn't even happened yet. But yeah, I think 3 points for Jason. I do struggle, out of Matt, Stevie and Jason, I do struggle to work out who I think is the best. I think Jason's was quite accurate in terms of the comparison. Matt's was more impressive in terms of, like, he had the hardest job to do. And Stevie's I thought was really good as well. So I do think there could be arguments for like any order, but Greg ended up giving Matt 5 points, Stevie 4 and Jason 3 points, then Rosie with 2 and Fatia obviously with 1 point. The third task was the P Olympics, and they had to compete in the P Olympics, and it was most medals won wins. This I thought was a fantastic task. So we ended up having 5 tasks in this one task, and these were to find the pea under the pillows. They couldn't tamper with the pillows. They had to balance the pea on the tallest tower of carrots. They had to catch a pea from the catapult. They had to throw the pea the furthest, and then they had to find that thrown pea. I think this is really fun. I love it when a task is made up of multiple tasks, because there's just more chances for contestants to mess up. I feel like they get flustered a lot more easier, so therefore make mistakes or get annoyed at things more easily. So it just creates a very fun, entertaining environment. So I do really like these tasks. And again, I think it's a really good one to include in the first episode, because it is just setting up the season very well as being chaotic and fun. And if you've never seen it before, you'd find this hilarious and just so maddening. And it's very, very good, like, first episode task, I think. So we saw Fatia's and Matt's attempt first, and I thought these two were very, very funny, especially like when they're compared to each other, because we had Fatia making Alex do everything for her. Like, she was pointing at pillows to pick up and he would have to pick them up, and yeah, just so many things that I thought were funny from her attempt. The fact that she counted all the pillows and like knew it was 26 pillows but didn't think the alphabet, like, let's pick up the one that would be P. I don't get how she got to like figuring out that the pillows might have there might be some logic to it, but didn't then go to think what that logic could be. Matt also did try to think of like the colours and thought that the colour changed, that the pattern changed, but he ended up just removing all the pillows and losing the P, which I'm surprised he didn't get disqualified with later on, but I guess it just didn't specify that it had to be that P. Both of them, I think, made very good carrot towers. Unfortunately for him, but fortunately for us because it was entertaining, his slid off the carrot, and that was a second task that he just completely lost. And yeah, the start of a disastrous attempt, I think, for Matt in this one. Just absolutely hilarious. The fact that he's already like breaking in this first episode, which I know is probably like a task that was filmed quite late in the season because it's a location one, like for him. Just the fact that we've seen him break down for the second time already in this episode. He looked absolutely like distraught in the task where he had to catch the pea. He just seemed absolutely like fed up and broken, and I just thought it was absolutely hilarious. Whereas Fatia was just there, just chilling, it seemed like. She ended up catching the peas in her hijab, which I thought was quite good. Like, they didn't say anything, that you just had to catch it, she technically caught it. I thought that was a very like good way around it. So yeah, she ended up catching loads. And I thought she was very smart with the throwing one. The fact that she knew that she would have to go find that pea. So set herself up very well for the final task, which I thought was very, very clever. Matt also very clever with the fact that he put it in the carrot so he wouldn't lose it. Again, thinking a bit more logically, but then threw a ton more carrots, which meant it made it more difficult for him to find it in the end. But at least he had a little victory at the end. That was very nice. But I'm very intrigued to see how Matt's journey on Taskmaster goes, considering he said that this was not one of his lowest days, that he thinks of this one quite fondly, and like the fact that the first task didn't go very well for him. He had a bit of got very angry at that one. The second task, he messed himself up by doing it as a song, and now he's had a disastrous task here. Like, just how his journey on Taskmaster is going to go, I'm very excited for it. Then we had the other three all paired together. A lot of very funny moments in these. Rosie making comments about how peas don't talk and that's not going to help her find it. Just Taskmaster really brings out the madness in people, which I love. Stevie having an amazing moment where she decided to kind of like cheat and tamper with it and just find a pea under the pillow and put it under the pillow that had the actual pea in. Just amazing. I thought it was such a good moment. We had Jason just finding it just by picking up loads of pillows. I think that's the only way you can really do it unless you figure out that there's 26 of them, which I'm really surprised that nobody did. But I guess if you think you haven't got that much time, you're just going to kind of go a bit mad, I guess. And then on to the carrot one. And oh my God, poor Stevie. She had the same fate as Matt where it just slid off at the end. But her carrot tower was incredible. And yeah, it's so sad that it didn't work out. I think the best thing that she could have done was to just have 2 of the carrots like very close together and kind of put the pea in the ridge, and that way it wouldn't have fallen off. But yeah, sad for Stevie. Rosie did incredible on this task, the carrot one, because she like managed to put the carrot up like upright and put the pea on top of that. I'm assuming she like broke the pea a little bit to put that on top of the carrot, which I don't think was not allowed. So very ingenious from her. And then we had Jason as well, bringing out another one of his tools, which I think was just a penknife. And yeah, was cut all the carrots, but didn't do very well. Like his tower wasn't very good, but at least he managed to he actually managed to get the pea onto the carrots. On to the catapult one for these 3. Stevie and Jason both had the very, very smart idea to just go up really close to the catapult and catch the pea that way, which I didn't think of. I thought that was genius. Such a smart idea. Whereas Rosie just got really lucky. I mean, I'm not sure how long she was going at that task for, but it just went straight into her hands, which so good. And the fact that then she had that amazing moment later on where she just found the pea in the grass, just amazing. Like she just had some very extreme amount of luck in some of these, which I thought was very, very funny, especially when you've got Stevie and Matt just having a terrible time and she's just wandering around like, oh yeah, there's the pea that I threw in the grass. Just amazing. Jason also had the smart idea of putting it in the carrot. I think that would be the thing I would have done because, yeah, throwing a pea onto the grass, you know that it's going to, you're going to have to pick it back up again. So, yeah, very good idea to do that. But I think Matt and Jason both screwed themselves up a little bit with just how far they were able to throw it because it was in the carrot. Whereas if you're just throwing a pea, I feel like you're not going to get it as far as you are going to get the carrot. But I thought, I didn't mention this for Matt, but the fact that it was so windy and cold on his attempt, he looked freezing. And the fact that he had to throw the pea against the wind, it was just hilarious. He just had such a bad day. This was, I think, as I said, such a good task. The fact that Rosie was able to find the pea quicker than Jason and Matt did when they were finding carrots, amazing. I did find the scoring quite confusing. I think Alex went through it really, really quickly. But we had joint winners of Rosie and Jason. They both got 5 points. Fatia was in 3rd, and then in joint 4th we had Matt and Stevie. As I said, I thought this task was a really good idea. Loved the multiple tasks. Yeah, just a really, really strong one for me. And then finally on to the studio task. And this one was to put the most amount of raisins into the wine glass. They could only touch the raisins with their mouths and they couldn't bend at the waist. And every raisin they had in the glass, they had to say a fellow contestant's name, and then that contestant then had to say their own name. Very confusing. It took me a little bit to work out what was actually going on. And I do quite like the high energy studio tasks because you want something that's entertaining to watch, especially because you're not seeing their attempts edited or individual. Especially if you are in the studio at that moment, you want something that's going to be entertaining, high energy for the studio audience. So this one I think was a really good one. And it was just absolute chaos. Matt had the best idea with this one by picking up the whole plate of raisins and tipping it into the wine glass. He won from that moment on. He could have just sat there and just made sure that he replied to whoever said his name, because then he would, if he had obviously made a mistake, then that would have got tipped out. But yeah, he absolutely made the right decision on that point. And then got on the floor, and I think lying down is the best way to do it. Stevie ended up doing it as well. But yeah, lying down and just getting the raisins in that way. You could get big mouthfuls of raisins and put them all in at the same time. Because people like Rosie and Jason were getting the raisins in their mouths and then standing over it and trying to aim it into the glass, which I think would have been a lot more difficult. I thought it was really funny when Jason hit himself in the face with the plate when trying to get them off, but it didn't seem to faze him at all. And then with this chaos of everybody running around shouting their names, trying to everybody, I think, quite struggling, apart from like Matt, who was just chilling on the floor. But then Fatia just standing there, not really doing anything at all. At one point, she was trying to blow the raisins off the plate, which I thought was fascinating. But yeah, I absolutely love her lack of effort in this. This task was just pure madness, and I absolutely loved it. Matt ended up winning, with Rosie and Stevie coming joint second, so getting 4 points each. Jason only got 2 points and Fatia got 1 point, which means that Matt won the episode, which I think is amazing considering you could say he had quite a disastrous episode in many aspects. But yeah, he ended up winning with 19 points. Overall, I thought this was a fantastic episode. I thought we had a very strong prize task, good anecdotes coming from it, very strong prizes, nostalgic prizes, it kind of brings back good memories. We had quite a simple, deceptively simple first task where they had a bit of a twist, a fun pun at the end. We had a almost like creative task, but a twist on a creative task where the creativity is turned into a challenge, where the more creative you are, the more difficult it is for you in the second part. We then had a very fun, high energy, multiple task, and then a very chaotic studio task. To me, in many ways, this is a perfect episode, and I think a very strong episode to start a series on. As I said, I think for people who are watching this show for the first time are going to be amazed and shocked and surprised by a lot of things. And for regular viewers of Taskmaster, it doesn't feel too familiar, but it doesn't feel like we're going into completely different territory. It feels fresh. It feels like they've got some new ideas, which I really like. It doesn't feel like they've stagnated or they're running out of ideas. I think this was a very, very strong episode, and I'm really excited to see where the rest of the season goes. Obviously, one of the things that makes a season is the contestants, and I think they are all amazing. We've already got such a good relationship between them all. The banter in the studio is fantastic. They're playing off each other already, which I really enjoy, and individually, they're all great as well. They all bring something different. You've got the madness of Jason compared to the laid back Fatia. You've got Matt and Stevie, I think are going to become quite competitive, and they have completely different approaches as well. And you've got Rosie, who I think is a good middle character. I think she's had some amazing moments, but she also does seem to be not quite as competitive as everybody else. And I just think individually all great, and together they all complement each other, they work off each other, and I think it is going to be quite competitive, especially between Jason, Stevie and Matt. I think in terms of who wants to win, Rosie seems a bit more chill, but not as chill as Fatia. So yeah, I think this is going to be really strong. I don't know who the teams are going to be, and I'm excited to see who's going to be paired up with who, because I think there's so many different combinations you could have. In a way, I hope it's Jason and Fatia together, because they are the polar opposites, but they both get angry. So I think that would work incredibly well as a team, and then the other three together would be very good as well. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for the team distribution. I love the theme. I love the sciencey theme. I'm surprised they haven't done this before. They didn't really let this out when the trailer came out. We did see some promotional pictures afterwards where they're all in test tubes, which I thought looked really, really cool, especially because it's a show that you could argue is experiments with them. They've got the lab, and I think adding to that and having it them seem like mad scientists, Greg and Alex being these mad scientists who are experimenting and messing with the comedians. It's a really good theme to have. There's lots of intriguing tasks, I think, in the intro. I think there's one where Fatia's in a cave, which I'm really excited for that one, especially because we've seen the location, so this is a separate location, unless it's something that's linked to where they were in the P-Olympics task. I absolutely love how excited and happy Jason is to be there. I think a few people, not many, but I did see some people share this idea that they were a bit worried about whether or not Jason would fit in with everybody else and fit in with British humour and things, but I think he fits in perfectly. I was a huge fan of his before anyway, and I loved a lot of the things that he did, so I was very excited to see him, and I think it's good to mix it up a little bit and potentially expand who they get their comedians from. I do like it being a British show, but I think it's always good to kind of expand horizons a little bit. And yeah, I think he's fitting in very, very well. So yes, that is my review of the first episode of series 19. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like and comment down below your thoughts on the first episode. Did you enjoy it as much as I did? Who's your favourite contestant so far? Don't think anybody who watches my videos will be surprised to know that my favourite contestant is definitely Matt, and I think it probably will be throughout the full series, but I'm quite biased since I'm such a big fan of his. But yeah, let me know who your favourite contestant is so far, if you have one, and which one was your favourite task. I'm really intrigued to see what you guys think. And subscribe if you want to see more videos of Taskmaster. I'll have some more out for you soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!